Imagine this. The most powerful law enforcement official in the United States sits before Congress. A congresswoman asks him about the deadliest terrorist attacks on American soil in the last decade. And he doesn't remember. Not Charleston. Not Pittsburgh. Not El Paso. Not Buffalo. 46 people dead. Hundreds injured. Families torn apart by hate, and the FBI director hesitates, stumbles, deflects. What you're about to witness isn't a normal congressional hearing. It's the moment when a single congresswoman, Sidney Clicker-Dove, used crystal clear facts to expose a system that would rather stay silent than speak the truth. Because what happened here goes far beyond politics. It's about one question. What happens to a democracy when its institutions are afraid of reality? Stay with me, because these next 20 minutes will show you why silence is never neutral.
From California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director, for coming here today. And actually, thank you for your response to my colleague from New York who asked you earlier about violent extremism. And you said that there is violent extreme ideology on both sides. And I think you actually alluded to that same statement yesterday in the Senate. So I too have some questions I'd like to ask you. These are not gotcha questions, and just deny, please, what you deem to be false. So Dylan Roof, who followed white supremacist propaganda, murdered 9 black parishioners in Charleston in 2015. Do you deny this?
I'm sorry. Dylan Ruth?
Roof?
Roof, can you give me some more information?
You're head of the FBI, you probably know this. If you don't know, that's fine.
If you can give me a reminder, I've got a lot in front of me.
It was national news. Robert Bowers murdered 11 Jewish worshipers in Pittsburgh in 2018.
I do remember that.
And it was the deadliest anti-Semitic attack. So do you admit that that happened?
I'm not saying the other thing didn't happen. I'm just asking for a little information.
Patrick Cruces, who posted a manifesto about a Hispanic invasion, walked into a Walmart in El Paso, Texas in 2019 and began firing. He murdered 23 people that day, and the youngest was 15. Do you admit or deny that that happened?
I'll take your presentation as accurate.
All right, well, I have to say all of these cases have been adjudicated. As I said, they are not gotcha questions. These incidents were national news. And as director of the FBI, you have access to all of this information. So in 2022, Peyton Grendon walked into a supermarket in a black neighborhood in Buffalo, New York, and started shooting. He murdered 10 people that day. And on September 10th, your friend Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Tyler Robinson has been taken into custody and charged, but also on that day, Desmond Holley, a 16-year-old white male, shot and injured 2 students at a high school in Colorado before killing himself. And according to the Anti-Defamation League, he had a fascination with mass shootings and white supremacy. So do you admit to, deny these facts?
Those happened.
Okay. Your predecessor, former FBI Director Christopher Wray, said that one of the most dangerous concerns is that racially motivated violent extremism, especially white supremacists, has been the biggest chunk of our domestic terrorism cases and is responsible for the most lethal attacks over the last decade. Do you admit or deny, A, that he said this?
I'll let the record reflect that. Whatever he said was what he said.
All right, and do you agree?
That there is racially motivated crimes being committed in America, yes.
Yes, especially white supremacists, which is the biggest chunk of our domestic terrorism. I'm glad that you said this. So last week, President Trump was asked if there were extremists on both the left and the right. He was actually asked this by Fox and Friends, and his exact words were, "I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy." Do you agree with the president?
I don't speak for the president. The president speaks for himself.
Do you agree with the president?
I don't. On what matter?
On the question that I just asked, do you agree with his statement about the radical left?
That there's ideology that's driving violence on both sides? Yes, that's what he acknowledged.
No, he didn't. He didn't. Okay. But I'm glad that you're saying that and actually creating some separation between you and the president. And I'm glad that you
That's literally
are
not what happened. He said
acknowledging
both.
that there is violent extremism on both sides. What's interesting is that the research arm of the Department of Justice, the National Institute of Justice, do you know what that is?
I'm familiar with them.
Okay, great. It is the research arm of the Department of Justice, and it published an article in 2024 devoted to domestic radicalization, violent extremism, and terrorism. I have it. It's interesting that it's no longer on the website. It has been scrubbed, but I ask these questions because what makes a strong, qualified director of any business, of any household, of the FBI, what makes a reputable prosecutor is not lapdog loyalty, but a commitment to the creed that evidence is agnostic and that the evidence will lead you to making the right decisions. And your job, no one's job is to like the data or the evidence, it is to collect it. That is how you gain trust. And Mr. Chair, I would like to enter into the record, if I may. White supremacist group stands by racist ideology with unanimous consent.
Without objection.
Dylan Roof, the radicalization of the alt-right and ritualized racial violence.
Without objection.
Thank you. Another article, how Robert Bowers went from conservative to white nationalist. I'd like to enter that into the record with me.
Without objection.
Patrick Cruces believed he was fulfilling Trump's wishes in El Paso attack, his attorney said. I'd like to enter into the record.
Without objection.
Buffalo shooting, how far-right killers are radicalized online. I'd like to enter that into the record.
Without objection.
Evergreen High School shooters online activity reveals fascination with mass shootings, white supremacy. I'd like to enter that into the record.
Without objection.
Murder and extremism in the United States in 2024, a report by the Anti-Defamation League. I'd like to enter that into
Without
the record.
objection.
And the article, the report that was scrubbed from the DOJ just recently, National Institute of Justice Journal focusing on domestic radicalization, violent extremism, and terrorism. I'd like to enter that into the record.
Without objection.
And lastly, the libertarian think tank Cato and their analysis on violent extremism and the right rising in extremist acts. I'd like to enter that into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
To understand what really happened in this hearing, we need to take a step back. The FBI isn't just another agency. It's the central nervous system of American law enforcement. Organized crime, terrorism, espionage. Everything flows through here. And at the top stands the director, a position with enormous power, enormous responsibility, and theoretically, absolute independence. But what happens when that independence crumbles? When political pressure outweighs facts? When the fear of headlines becomes stronger than the duty to truth? That's exactly what we're witnessing right now. To understand what really happened in this hearing, we need to take a step back. The FBI isn't just another agency. It's the central nervous system of American law enforcement. Organized crime, terrorism, espionage. Everything flows through here. And at the top stands the director, a position with enormous power, enormous responsibility, and theoretically, absolute independence. But what happens when that independence crumbles? When political pressure outweighs facts? When the fear of headlines becomes stronger than the duty to truth? That's exactly what we're witnessing right now. Let's get specific. Sidney Dove confronted FBI Director Patel with 4 cases. Not just any cases. 4 of the most brutal, ideologically motivated mass murders of the last decade. Case 1. Charleston, South Carolina. June 17th, 2015. A young white man enters the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church, a historic church, a sanctuary for the black community for generations. He attends a Bible study session. The congregation welcomes him with open arms, and then he pulls out a gun. 9 people die. 9 innocent worshipers, including Pastor Clementa Pinckney, a respected state senator. The perpetrator later states he wanted to start a race war. Case 2, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, October 27th, 2018. A man storms the Tree of Life synagogue during Shabbat services. He's armed with an assault rifle and multiple handguns. He screams anti-Semitic slogans while opening fire. 11 people die. The oldest victim was 97 years old. It remains the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in United States history. Case 3, El Paso, Texas, August 3rd, 2019. A young man from Dallas drives 10 hours to El Paso. Why? Because many Latinos live there. He publishes a manifesto online before the attack. He wants to kill Hispanic Americans. He calls it an invasion. He enters a Walmart on a Saturday afternoon. Families shopping, children, grandparents, 23 people die. Dozens are injured. Case 4, Buffalo, New York, May 14th, 2022. An 18-year-old from a rural suburb drives to Buffalo, specifically to a predominantly black neighborhood. He live streams the attack. He wears racist symbols on his equipment. His manifesto is filled with the so-called Great Replacement Theory, the conspiracy ideology that white people are being systematically replaced. He opens fire in a supermarket. 10 people die. 3 more are seriously injured. These are the facts. Not interpretations, not opinions. Documented, criminally prosecuted mass murders, all motivated by white supremacist ideology. And Sidney Dove laid exactly these facts before FBI Director Patel. Now it gets uncomfortable. Dove begins methodically, calmly, clearly. She's not asking for opinions. She's asking for facts. Director Patel, do you recall the Charleston massacre? Patel hesitates. His gaze drifts. Could you clarify that? Clarify? Dove remains unshaken. She names the date, the location, the death toll, the perpetrator's name, the motive. Patel nods briefly. Yes, of course. But his body language tells a different story. No empathy, no outrage, just discomfort. Dove continues. Pittsburgh. Tree of Life, 11 dead. The deadliest anti-Semitic attack in U.S. history. Do you recall? Again, hesitation. I would need to verify the exact details. Details? We're talking about 11 people murdered during worship. Dove doesn't let up. She presents El Paso. She presents Buffalo. With each case, the same pattern. Evasion, relativization, no clear acknowledgement. No naming of the ideological core, and then the decisive moment. Dove asks directly. Director Patel, would you agree that white supremacism is the deadliest form of domestic terrorism in the United States? The question hangs in the air. The cameras are rolling. The room is silent, and Patel deflects. We observe extremism on all sides. Our job is to treat all threats equally. Equally. Dove doesn't accept that. She pulls out reports, studies, numbers, not her numbers, the FBI's own numbers, the Department of Homeland Security, the Anti-Defamation League, all say the same thing. Far-right, white supremacist terror is the greatest domestic threat. Patel sticks to his line. We must take all forms of extremism seriously. It sounds professional. It sounds neutral, but it's neither. It's obfuscation. Sidney Dove didn't come to speculate. She came to document. One after another, she enters reports into the official congressional record. ADL Center on Extremism Report, 2022. White supremacist ideology was responsible for the majority of extremist-related murders in the U.S. FBI Domestic Terrorism Threat Assessment. Racially motivated violent extremism, particularly from white supremacist groups, poses the most lethal threat. Department of Homeland Security Intelligence note. Lone offenders and small cells, motivated by racial animus, represent the most persistent and dangerous domestic terror threat. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division report. Detailed case analyses of Charleston, Pittsburgh, El Paso, Buffalo, all with clear ideological motives. These aren't opinions. These aren't political statements. These are official government documents, written by experts, based on data, published under different administrations. And Dove asks a simple question. If our own agencies acknowledge this reality, why doesn't leadership? Patel has no answer. Or rather, he can't give an answer, because this isn't about ignorance. Patel isn't stupid. He isn't uninformed. He isn't unprepared. He's trapped. Trapped between facts and politics, between truth and expectations, between his oath to the Constitution and the pressure not to upset anyone. And that's exactly the problem. Let's be honest. Kash Patel isn't the villain of this story. He's the symptom. The real problem is much bigger. It's structural, cultural, political. In recent years, a dangerous phenomenon has established itself in American politics. The fear of naming. When an Islamist terrorist commits an attack, there's no hesitation. Politicians of all stripes condemn Islamist extremism. Media extensively reports on the ideology. Security agencies promise increased measures. But when a white supremacist murders, then it's relativized. Mental health issues, lone wolf, not representative. We mustn't generalize. Why this double standard? 3 reasons. First, political pressure. A significant portion of the American electorate feels uncomfortable with the term white terrorism, not because they support violence, but because they fear being collectively stigmatized. Politicians who want to be reelected therefore avoid clear language. Second, media backlash. Right-wing media attacks anyone who clearly names far-right terror as anti-conservative or partisan. The fear of this backlash paralyzes even neutral institutions. Third, ideological proximity. Here it gets explosive. Some of the narratives that drive white supremacist terrorists, the Great Replacement, fear of multiculturalism, distrust of diversity, these have become mainstream in diluted form. They appear in election campaigns, in talk shows, on social media. If you clearly name white supremacist terror, you also have to ask, who made this ideology socially acceptable? That's uncomfortable. That's painful. But it's necessary. And that's exactly why Patel evades. Not out of malice, but out of fear of the consequences of truth. But let's talk about consequences, because silence isn't neutral. Silence has consequences. Consequence 1, erosion of trust. When FBI leadership isn't willing to acknowledge obvious facts, why should the public still trust the agencies? Conspiracy theories thrive where transparency is lacking. Consequence 2, signal to extremists. When far-right terror isn't clearly named and prosecuted, it creates the impression it's tolerable. Potential perpetrators interpret silence as confirmation. Consequence 3, endangering victims, the communities affected by this terror. Black Americans, Jewish communities, Latino communities. They receive the message, your safety is secondary. Your fear is exaggerated, that's not just wrong. That's cruel. Consequence 4, the next generation. Young people who watch such hearings learn truth is negotiable. Facts are political. You don't have to be honest. You just have to be careful. That's perhaps the most dangerous consequence of all, because a democracy where truth is optional is no longer a democracy. But back to Sydney Dove, because she didn't end this hearing with resignation, but with a clear message. Director Patel, leadership isn't loyalty. Leadership isn't diplomacy. Leadership is courage. Courage to speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Courage to place facts above politics, even when it costs. Courage to serve victims, not strategies. The evidence lies before you. It isn't partisan. It isn't interpretable. It's agnostic. It doesn't ask for your beliefs. It only demands your acknowledgement. And if you, as head of the most powerful law enforcement agency in the world, don't have the courage to acknowledge it, then I wonder, what does this institution stand for anymore? The room remained silent. Patel didn't respond, but the message had landed. Not just with Patel, with everyone watching. Dove showed something crucial. You don't need power to speak truth. You only need principles and the willingness to be uncomfortable. She didn't shout. She didn't grandstand. She simply laid facts on the table and demanded accountability. That's leadership. Not the kind that seeks applause. The kind that serves justice. So, what now? This story isn't over. It plays out every single day. In hearings, in news cycles, in political debates. And the question is, where do you stand? Silence is a choice. Looking away is a choice. Saying both sides without checking the numbers is a choice, but you can choose differently. Educate yourself. Read the reports. Not headlines, sources. Talk about it. In your family. Among friends. In your community, demand accountability. From politicians. From agencies. From media. Because democracy isn't autopilot. It needs alert citizens. It needs people who ask questions. Who demand answers. Who don't accept that facts are negotiable. Sydney Dove did her part. She put truth on the table. Now it's up to us what we do with it, because, as she said, silence protects no one. Thank you for watching. If this video moved you, share it. Discuss it. And above all, stay awake. The fight for truth doesn't end when the hearing adjourns. It continues in every conversation we have, every time we choose clarity over comfort, every time we refuse to let facts become casualties of politics. This isn't about left versus right. This isn't about partisan warfare. This is about whether we still live in a society where evidence matters, where institutional leaders can say the hardest truths without flinching, where the families in Charleston, Pittsburgh, El Paso, and Buffalo get justice, not just sympathy. Sydney Dove stood alone in that hearing room, but she doesn't have to stand alone anymore. Until next time.